Hello guys, this is going to be a video on Captain Sisay being my commander, and really the cards that I added and chose to go in this deck and why and how this deck works. So obviously, Captain Sisay is the base of the core of this whole deck. And it's all based on the effect that she has, that when she taps, search your library for a legend or legendary card. So I have these two cards that are legendary lands that I use for mana fixing. That's pretty much it. Then I also use it in the combination of Paradox Engine that says whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. So this does not help with like the legendary lands. Here's another legendary land. I use it just so I can give my creatures haste that I use. But I use it in response to really just about everything that I can. Primarily artifacts and creatures. So what I try to do is I try to get out first turn or second turn one of these small creatures. They tap for mana. Unfortunately with Yorga I have to level her up. However, when I do get a whole bunch of elves, which is pretty much kind of my engine for this deck, is the elves. Coincidentally not, it is not just the Paradox engine, but however it is a core piece. This deck can actually just go off with just elves. So it has a nice plan B if that needs to happen, if they think that, oh, Paradox engine, that's the problem card. It's really these elves, to be honest. Because without it, I can get lots of mana and buff them up and make them stronger. So when I'm using Paradox Engine, I can tap and untap my artifacts that will allow me to get Omnath very, very strong each time, but I have to cast a spell, so it has to be a creature, an artifact, a sorcery, an instant, an enchantment, something that hits the field with the exception of a land. I can make tons of tokens. I can make more and more tokens to create more mana, so I can tap for more mana. And as you can see, it's very, very confusing. It can get really out of hand pretty fast. And it does. It goes out of hand consistently, turn 3, 4, or 5. Today I was able to get it off in 4 when I was playing somebody. But in order to make sure that I'm getting the right lands, I have Sylvan Scrying, which lets me put it in my hand, or Search for Tomorrow, that lets me automatically put it on the field. That's for basic land, or even Wood Elves. Whenever I'm looking with Wood Elves, I can get a forest card, meaning that I could get a dual land. Once I get it, that I'll be able to use that. And the awesome thing about those is that they don't cost too much. They're 2 or 3 mana, so it's not too bad. So meanwhile, I'm getting lots of mana. What am I going to do with it? I usually go to Mindslayer. So if I don't get haste, because before I didn't get haste, this was my win condition, that I would do whatever I can to screw up the opponent as much as I can possibly. Usually I'll have a card like Avacyn out, which gives other permanents indestructible, so I'll have his cards attack my big creature cards and they die. because my creatures will have indestructibility, so that's pretty nice. And I also have 2 planeswalkers. I have Gideon Jura, which is perfect to destroy target tapped creature. That's really what I want to use it for, is that that -2. That's really the only purpose it's in my deck for right now. Although he does have a nice tank on the bottom. The next card, which is super shiny because it's hollow, because that was the only one I was able to get, is Elspeth Sun's Champion. So I like it for its destroy all creatures with power 4 or less, for power 4 or greater. And I also like it for its +1 and its -7. Its +1 is put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens on the battlefield, which is great because I love tokens. This deck can go off very easily with tokens to create more mana than I can create more tokens. So it gets pretty out of hand. And also when I use doubling seasoning, this works as well as my elf tokens to make there be even more elves. It has get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have flying. So this buffs up my creatures. So let's say they're already getting buffed up by this, or they're getting buffed up in addition to that with Jitte. So my creatures are getting pretty big pretty fast as well. So size is not a matter of or an issue, I would say. But let's say something bad happens. Let's say I don't get the Gilded Lotus, which is a pretty key part, and I'm getting mana screwed. I only have Mox Opal and Mana Vault. Well, I can still use Enlightened Tutor to get my artifacts that I need, or my enchantments that I need. And I have 2 really nice enchantments, Blind Obedience, which has Extort, so I can ping them for 1 life, and I can gain that much life. So that's kind of nice. And artifacts and creatures your opponent controls enter the battlefield tapped. So it kind of stalls them. Same with my Ghostly Prison. Creatures can't attack you unless the controller pays 2 for each creature attacking you. So it's pretty good for stalling, and this is pretty much why I have all these white cards. They're really for stall. So Wrath of God resets everything, but it still stalls. Swords to Plowshares, target creature removed from the game entirely. Person gains life to the creature's power. Okay. Stalls. Depth of Loyalty, regenerate target creature, gain control of that creature. Nice card. It's pretty easy. And remove target creature you control from combat and untap it. So it kind of fizzles out. Depth of Loyalty. Very, very undervalued card. It is a rare white control card. So it definitely helps in this deck, and it is definitely a hidden gem. So this is really how this deck works. As you can see, there's lots of possibility. There's a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, a plan E, depending on what the situation is. I can still get cards out. I can't be milled out because I have a card in my deck. I don't want to search through my whole deck though. But I have a card in my deck that says, and I think it's Relic, that cards are exile. You can exile cards. And there's another card that I have that everything gets shuffled back into your deck. That's from your grave. So I don't get just milled out always, or sometimes if they think they're doing a graveyard, hey, I can pull their creatures out of their graveyard and put it under my control. So there's a lot of things going on with this deck. It is very, very flexible towards what the situation might be, and I really like this deck. This is probably one of the best decks I've made, most complete deck for sure that I made, as far as for being well versed and being ready for really just about any situation. The only thing that scares me is someone going off before turn 3, 4, or 5. I can go off on turn 2. That's the fastest it can go. But the stakes on that, it's not going to happen. Not very likely at all. If it does happen, it probably means that I have not shuffled well enough. So I'm just taking that out of the question. But turn 3, 4, and 5, this deck is very consistent. I know, worst case scenario, even if it goes to 6, it'll be fine. I was able to go off turn 4 in the game today, and that was even when I was getting mana screwed. So, pretty good deck. Hope you guys like this little explanation on how my deck works and why I have the cards that I do. What can I say? Captain Sisay is a pretty powerful card and a great commander. It seems like this commander was made just for this deck. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.